how can AI impact diversity and inclusion? And should it be viewed with pure optimism or maybe a level of healthy skepticism? That and more. Stay tuned on this week's Hiring on All Cylinders.
Do you want to add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
You have to get in a room and have those conversations to realize that, oh wait, we're not actually in alignment here.
Good afternoon, listeners. This is Sean Simmerly, your host of Intello's Hiring on All Cylinders podcast. It's been a whirlwind of a day. I hope that yours is going as well as mine is. We are at the Recruiting Automation Summit here in San Francisco, California, at the wonderful Village located on Market Street. And it's been a day full of talks, panels, questions, answers, and a whole slew of other things about everything ranging from AI to machine learning to automation to diversity to inclusion to bias. The list goes on, and I feel like my brain is about to explode. But luckily, sitting across from me is someone that might be able to help explain and contribute to some of these questions in a really thoughtful way. So I'm joined right now by Margie Cadet. She is the Director of Talent, Diversity, and Inclusion at DonorsChooseorg. Margie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So you were just on a panel, right?
Yep.
Awesome. And what was that panel all about?
So the panel that I was on was speaking to hiring in the age of AI. Mm-hmm. And our moderator, DK, kicked it off with a presentation about what AI can and can't do when it comes to hiring. And then we all spoke to our perspective on AI and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
For sure. And I feel like that is a very hot topic right now, simply because, as AI becomes more prevalent, not just in recruiting, but in all of our lives, I feel like there's a trend that whatever you bake into AI, whatever biases, whatever processes are built into our own human subjectivity, simply just becomes magnified by the AI. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what do you see as being potential pitfalls of AI when it comes to diversity, equality, inclusion, like you were talking about?
Yeah, so one of the things that concerns me about AI, I think that AI is awesome for recruiters because it can unlock so many big wins in terms of how you spend your time. It can help to eliminate bias, but what a lot of people don't think about is that there is such a thing called algorithmic bias. And so that means that algorithms can have they will mirror the biases that of the programmers that built the code. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to be thoughtful about what types of programs that you're using to ensure that you understand what is being baked into the algorithm and that it's not unintentionally bringing in biases that you were hoping to eliminate by using this AI.
Yeah, by employing this it's objective. It has to be. It's a machine.
Exactly. This is a computer. It can't be biased at all.
And
that's not true.
And it's oh no.
Exactly.
What did we just do?
Exactly. But most people don't have that oh no moment. Most people are just on autopilot. So they're like, we have this great technology.
Like blind faith.
Exactly. And that's what you don't want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of scary, and especially the fact that many people don't have that oh no moment. Mm-hmm. How can people try to avoid that? How can they make sure that they have that oh no moment, or even more than that, how can they make sure that they don't even have to get to that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everyone should have a healthy skepticism towards AI. Mm-hmm. You should want to understand how algorithms are built. You should ask those questions. You should ask the company that you're working with if they audit their algorithms. That in and of itself is a really healthy indicator of how thoughtful the company is being about how they've built their programs and their algorithms.
So you're on a first date. It's so do you audit your algorithms?
Exactly. How often do you audit your algorithms?
Exactly. These are the important questions we're asking. It'd be interesting if that was part of a candidate's questions when you're interviewing. It's you know your stuff.
Yeah.
About auditing algorithms.
Yeah.
healthy skepticism is important. I mean, we've had a couple guests on the show recently who talked about how context can oftentimes alleviate some of that worry or kind of satiate that skepticism by giving some insight into why things are provided the way they are. So, for example, with Intello's, one of our products, More Likely to Move, it actually will say, like, this is why, right? And for the longest time, we didn't have that. And we kept getting questions. Like, and you know, I'm involved with the sales team, and like I'd hear that all the time. And it's like, yeah, like you want to know, even if it's just a little hint of why something is functioning the way that it is.
Yep.
Because right now it is this black box.
Exactly. And that is one of the things that I love about Intello. It's awesome to see or to get a peek into why a candidate is more likely to move, or why a candidate might be a good fit for DonorsChooseorg. Was it because that person worked at a company similar to our size? Was it because we have had 3 people come from that company to work for us?
Yeah.
That I find fascinating. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's just the data's there. It's just about actually tapping into it.
Exactly.
So I'm going to take a huge step back. What does DonorsChooseorg do?
Sure. So DonorsChoose.org is a crowdfunding site for public school teachers. We're a nonprofit that helps teachers get supplies and materials and experiences for their students.
That is so important right now.
Totally.
I saw a great slide from one of the earlier sessions that was talking about how one of the biggest areas for opportunity when it comes to job openings is in education. Why do you think that is? And especially given the fact that you're helping provide, you know, supplies for teachers, like what is the kind of perfect storm that's brewing right now, I guess, in education that's providing, like, you have to have an organization to help provide these materials. There's a huge need for hiring for teachers. What does that all mean? That's a big question.
That's a huge question. It's a great question. I think that, at its core, our population is growing, right? And so we need people to educate our youth.
Yeah.
DonorsChoose.org has been around for the last 18 years, actually.
Whoa.
So we're in 80% of public school classrooms across the nation and have raised close to $700 million in materials and experiences for public schools across the country. And teachers every single year or 99% of teachers are purchasing materials for their students, pens, paper, crayons, out of pocket. And so DonorsChoose is a way of alleviating that burden from teachers.
Well, thank you. That's important. So what is that like then, heading up diversity and inclusion at a nonprofit that's, you know, working with such a broad base of this population?
It's awesome. It is the best.
You're glowing right now.
Yeah.
Like, our listeners can't see it, but like, yeah, okay, keep going.
It's amazing. So our nonprofit is striving for educational equity. And because of that, we attract a lot of people who care about equity. They care about making the world a better place. And with that, they care about it internally facing too. So I lead our diversity, equity, and inclusion task force at the org. And right now it's made up of over 20 staff members from teams across the organization, part-time and full-time staff members, older and younger staff members, folks with exec team members, associates, and it's a really beautiful thing to look around the room when we have our task force meetings and see the diversity within the room. And you can feel that everyone in the room really cares about the work. They may not know exactly how to go about it in the right way. They may not know. We're still trying to unlock what the answer is, right? Like no one knows what the someone earlier today mentioned AI nirvana. Like, what is diversity, equity, and inclusion nirvana? It's for some people, it looks like those stock photos on the internet with like just people of different colors smiling and laughing together.
Shaking hands.
Exactly. But for our organization, what we're trying to work towards is figuring out what diversity, what equity, what inclusion looks like at DonorsChoose.org specifically. So what does it mean to be an organization that's striving for educational equity? How do we mirror that within our organization? How can we make sure that our policies and the opportunities that we offer staff members are equitable across the board? How can we make sure that our staff members reflect the students and teachers that we serve? And with that, how can we get the best people on board who can help us better serve those students and teachers?
Really, really cool. And so, you talked about this task force. How did that form, and what has kind of been the result of that task force within DonorsChooseorg?
So my role at the org has been, it's actually really new. I've been in this role for a year, but our task force was started probably a year and a half ago by our former head of people operations, who wanted to start doing some diversity work at the org, but was literally leading our people operations team and could not do it on her own. And so she issued a call out to the organization and asked, who is interested in this work, who wants to help out. I was one of the people who raised my hand. And that's how we got started. We recently just wrapped up a project to define what diversity, what equity, and what inclusion mean at our organization.
It's a great exercise.
And it's so funny because it took us a lot longer than we thought it would, because folks had really strong opinions and thoughts around what it meant, but also how to communicate it. What words are we using? So, for example, we wanted to talk about different identifiers, and in a lot of diversity and inclusion statements, you see folks say visible and invisible, but that language in and of itself can be exclusionary, right? So if you are a person with visual impairments, to hear blind and or to hear visible and invisible can feel alienating. Yeah. And so we had that in an earlier draft, and someone flagged that for us, and so we had to go back to the drawing board and decide how are we gonna keep this concept and keep that sentiment without using language that might be alienating for folks. So we ended up with apparent and non-apparent.
I love it. And that's one of those things I feel like where without that task force and without that diversity of thought to begin with, you wouldn't have even found that. Because,
exactly.
Again, we're, I can see it. I'm not visually impaired, and so I might not even think about how that could impact that individual.
Exactly. And that's something that I think about a lot. I want to make sure that the work that I'm doing, the way that we're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work mirrors the end result. So I want our organization to be diverse, but am I getting diverse perspectives when I'm setting new policies or coming up with the definition for diversity? How many people are involved in it? How many people have I showed it to before putting like the final stamp of approval on it? We want to make sure that the work that we're doing is mirroring the end result.
Which I think every kind of diversity or recruiting or people team should be focused on, is making sure that, it's not just a tiny isolated incident, it's reflective of kind of the broader picture. Fabulous. Okay. Very cool. So I want to kind of get back into the idea of automation. We talked about having kind of healthy skepticism. What are some of the things you see in automation that are giving you, hope that like, oh, this is an improvement, this is going to help us when it comes to recruiting or diversity and inclusion?
I think everything that streamlines processes for recruiters is awesome. Like all of the manual things that we have to do, scheduling, making sure that you remember to get back to a candidate at the right moment. Everything that can empower those small minor tasks, those really excite me. I think that anything that can help to eliminate bias is really exciting. Those are the things that you should also be very skeptical of. Yep. But there are some really great organizations that are helping to eliminate bias through assessments, which to me is really interesting. It's really hard to figure out who the right candidate is.
So hard.
And a lot of people think you can do it by asking folks questions, and some people are pretty good at it, but there are better ways to predict how a candidate is going to perform when they get a job, and the best way to do that is to give them performance tasks. So companies that are doing that and are figuring out ways to do it to ask candidates the right questions, those are the types of companies that are really exciting to me. Nice. I think Pymetrics is one. We don't use them, but I recently found out about them, and they have some really awesome tools.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. the idea of kind of fit and an individual's aptitude for a position are becoming so much more important. I mean, you talked about, at DonorsChoose, like the people that are coming to you obviously have that kind of fire, that passion of impacting, teachers' lives and education and students. And so I think there's a inherent commonality, but many other organizations don't necessarily have that. And so how can you, as a recruiting organization, pick out of a lineup from the stock questions that so many organizations, unfortunately have been using, whether or not that person really does have that common passion, that thread that's going to push them, that's going to make them want to commit and exceed and grow with the organization?
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to figure that out. And I think, for organizations that are not mission focused, there are still things that leadership, that your stars, your high performers, what are the things that those people care about? And once you find that out, is it continuous learning? Is it a growth mindset? Once you find that out and identify that, that is something that you can try to suss out in the process. But you have to really identify what the organization cares about. And what are those skills? So I know a lot of orgs are doing really great work around creating core competence.
There you go, competency, yeah.
Core skill sets, right, for their organization. So what are the things that, no matter what your role is, no matter what level you are, what are the core skills that you need to have to be an employee at DonorsChoose.org, for example? For us, you need to be very flexible. We're a nonprofit. Things change every single day. We're also very fast-paced, and the folks who are most successful at our org can roll with the punches. You also need to have a healthy curiosity. We love for folks to ask questions, to want to go beyond their job description, to really understand how to do their job better. And to do that, you need to learn about all other aspects of the organization. If you're on the marketing team, you should also understand the operations of things so that you can better market to donors. Or if you're on people operations, for example, I need to understand the work that our staff members do so I can find the best talent for them. So making sure that you understand what matters at your organization for success, and then you start hiring for those skills.
If it's anything like trying to define what diversity, equality, and inclusion is, it might take us a while. We redefined our values, last year, and it was a really interesting process. I mean, similar, right? You start thinking about it, what should be what on the surface seems to be really simple. All of a sudden you're in a room and you're like, oh gosh, the perspectives and opinions are not soft.
Yes.
They're real.
And that's why it's so important, though, because you have to get in a room and have those conversations to realize that, oh, wait, we're not actually in alignment here. And that means that we haven't clearly defined what equity means at DonorsChoose. Okay, so let's sit and talk about it and figure it out. And then let's get to a place where we all feel good about it and where we can communicate it to newcomers, to teachers, to donors, to our whole community. We can communicate a definition that we feel really good about.
That's amazing. So for DonorsChoose.org, for those that want to contribute and help out DonorsChoose, how can we do that? How can our listeners do that?
Ooh, yeah. You can just go right on to DonorsChoose.org. You can check out our website. The awesome thing about our site is that we allow teachers to request exactly what they need for their classroom. So
amazing.
You can go on our website and search what is your favorite subject, actually?
I'm creative, so either music or film.
Okay. Yeah. So you could go on our site and search for music projects. You could search for your favorite film and see if there are teachers who are trying to bring that film into their classroom through different curriculum. When Black Panther came out, we had so many teachers create projects either for the comics to bring it into their classroom or to take their students to go see Black Panther in theaters. And it was so beautiful to see. That movie was really impactful for me, just as a viewer. And so that was one thing that I went on the site to search for. every time I'm reading a new book that really resonates with me, I try to search on our site for it and donate to projects that are trying to bring that book into the classroom. So
Nice.
yeah, if you want to help out, go on our site and search for whatever you're passionate about. You can even look by geography, so you can put your zip code in and find classrooms near you.
Cool.
You can put your hometown zip code in and find classrooms near where you grew up. So we like to say that our site really has something for everyone. And yeah, I would challenge you to try and find what you're most passionate about.
I love it. And if you're lucky enough to work somewhere like Intello where they match your philanthropic donations, you can double the good. So that's awesome. What books have you recently read that you're really into?
Ooh.
Sorry, you said books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need some new recommendations.
Okay, so for fiction, I recently read Homegoing,
Ooh.
and it is such a good book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to write this down.
Yeah, write it down. It
Homegoing.
is beautiful, and it follows, not to give away too much, but it follows it follows a family through generations, from Africa to the United States, and each chapter follows a different member of the lineage, and it's so beautiful, very well written, amazing book, Homegoing. I've also been into Oprah's Super Soul podcast lately.
Love it.
And she has a book based on a lot of the interviews from that podcast. So I think it's Wisdom from Sundays.
Okay.
That I have in my bag now because I've been opening up random passages. Another really great book is called Emergent Strategy.
Ooh.
And that book talks about some of the, basically like the mindset that you need to change the world.
Which is not an easy feat.
No.
But you need the right mindset, and everyone needs to try to.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and that book is really interesting because it also talks about how you can learn from nature, and take the things that are constantly happening in nature, the things that we know the things that are powerful in nature. How can you infuse that into the change that you want to make in the world?
Well, I think with the work that you're doing with DonorsChooseorg, I think you must have that right mindset. And maybe the natural occurrence that we're pulling from is diversity within this crazy world that we live in.
Exactly.
Margie, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Of course. Well, until the next time, listeners, if that mission tickled your fancy, definitely check out the website, DonorsChooseorg. Obviously, feel free to check out our website too, Intello.com, because I think I'm supposed to say that on every one of these, maybe. But with that, I think we'll sign off and wish you a great rest of your day, evening, morning, whenever you happen to be consuming this. Thanks so much, Margie.
Thank you.